All right. We are rolling. Bailey, thank you for joining me. Really appreciate this. How's
Yeah.
your day going?
Oh, it's going pretty well. Rainy and um, gross out here, but it's good.
In North Carolina, is that right?
North Carolina, Charlotte.
Got it. Right on. Well, no, thanks for taking the call and pod request because I saw your stuff on Instagram and naturally was like, hey, anyone that's doing anything interesting on social media in this industry, I want to talk to.
Yeah.
So I just fired off a message and you're like, yeah, let's do it. So that's how we met. So this is for everyone that's watching.
Yep.
This is how we met. So let's jump into the Instagram stuff. So I went back through some of your posts and reels and I mean thousands of views. So this is impressive to start. So like that's, not the norm for our industry for one. So talk to me about the presence and how it started.
Yeah. So, I think it has a lot to do with my generation. I'm just a lot of people who are, my generation and my age, we do a lot of our shopping and research and everything on Instagram. So to me, it's kind of like if I'm even like starting to see a new product or like wanting to try a new restaurant, the first thing I always do is go on Instagram. And I want to check out if they have a good following on Instagram, if they are consistent with it, because to me, that shows that they are okay, they're established, they do good business and they care to like advertise it. So when I first started my home inspection company, I just wanted my first very platform was Instagram. Before I even made a Google business page, I was like, make Instagram.
Great.
Or even had like a PO box or an LLC. Even I was like, I need to get on Instagram.
Instagram.
Yeah. So before, like I said, when I was going through the training of becoming a home inspector, that's when I started my Instagram page. I was like, I have enough information and knowledge to at least, put stuff out there and just start to get my name out there. And so I was making reels and posting stories before I was even licensed. I was like posting quizzes. I think that's one of the first things I did was because I was learning so much from the training. And I was like, I'm just going to put these quizzes out here. The same questions that I'm getting answered for my training, I'm going to put on my Instagram and see, what feedback I get. So I started to do that and people would respond. And that's how I really started to gain my following. And then, of course, I went and I got licensed, went balls to the wall and just exploded on Instagram. I was following every single realtor I knew in Charlotte. I was following every, real estate team. I was following other inspectors in my field. But as I was doing that, I was coming to find out that a lot of my competitors and home inspectors in the area did not have an Instagram page. So like 3 years ago, well, they had an Instagram, but they didn't, or they weren't consistent with it. And I was like, this is like kind of my niche. Like I need to really establish myself on here. And I was just going into people's DMs and messaging them. And like, I would never get a response. Maybe like once a week I would get a response and they're like, who's this person? And then like slowly and gradually I would just like post every day. And finally it kind of took a turn where I was being consistent with it. I was commenting on other posts. And I think that set me apart from my competition because I also was gaining traction from real estate agents who also build their business on Instagram. So they kind of appreciate and understand like this is a huge marketing area. And another thing that I did was at each inspection, I still do this to this day, but when I first started, I would take a photo of the home. I would tag the location as specific as possible, and I would tag the real estate agent. And I do that for every home inspection, and I post it on my story immediately, and they repost it. So it's kind of like a win-win for both of us. Like they're getting exposure, like they got this house under contract, congratulations. And then it's good for me because as soon as they repost it, there's hundreds of other agents that see it that may not follow me yet. So
this is a master's class, I think, in startup Instagram. It's making me smile because when we teach the InterNACHI new inspector courses up in Boulder, I always tell them you're learning stuff this week that the average person or agent doesn't know and might be interested in. So like start talking about it and start posting. But there's this like overwhelming insecurity when you're new at anything that prevents most people from going out there and doing it. So I have a few follow-up questions. So what did the DMs say? Was it just introducing yourself? Kind of like what did those early DMs that got crickets say?
Yeah. So the early DMs that got crickets, it was way too long. So like it was trial and error for me in the beginning. Like, I was so excited. I was like, I want to give them as much information as possible. Like, I'm going and, you know, and I get messages to this day where they're just paragraphs. And I'm like, I have to sit down and like take time to read this. And so I was like, okay, Bailey, these people are busy. Like, they're not responding to your emails or your messages. So I did have the long paragraph. I was like, my name's Bailey. I just started my home inspection business, blah, blah, blah. I do this, this, and this. And I kind of stopped doing that. And I was just like, hey, I'm Bailey. I'm new here in the home inspection industry, just trying to build my network. Would you like to grab coffee? So that's kind of like, you have to end it with a question so that they can respond. You can't just leave it, you know.
Yeah. Let me know if you need a home inspection. Like, no, no.
Yeah. Like, can you share your email so I can send you more information? Or like, do you want to grab a coffee? Or can you hop on like a Zoom call so I can like discuss my process? Anything like that. Like, you have to end it with a question.
How many of those do you think you fired off like in your ramp up period?
I actually had like a notepad and I set a goal for myself every day as far as like marketing. So I would spend at least 15 minutes on Instagram just engaging as far as like liking posts, following new people, commenting. But I probably sent about 20 DMs a day.
That's
Like,
amazing.
yeah, to as many people as I could, even like outside my radius, just everywhere.
So you found all the agents, probably followed them,
Mm-hmm.
started commenting, reaching out. So, and then, so there's like the outreach side, the commenting on their posts, but then you started posting. What was that like? Just like talk about the imposter syndrome, like of, oh my gosh, I'm brand new, but I'm just gonna start being a content creator, which is
Yeah,
not
so
easy.
because I am I'm naturally a shy person. Like, I get asked to do stuff like this, and I get asked to do presentations, and I'm just like, oh God. But it's like, I'm better at it. And because I read this book, it's called Get Different, and it's a marketing book about how you have to separate yourself in terms of your marketing to like get attention. So I read that, and it talked a lot about like insecurity and like being nervous and just being so hard on yourself when you post these videos and these reels. And like, you have to gain confidence in yourself, and you have to just keep it short, sweet, and simple, and put it in layman's terms so that other people understand, and you're not just like spitting out information to them. So yeah, when I first posted reels, I like couldn't even, I would have to post it with the sound off, and I can't even listen to myself. I'm like, out of sight, out of mind, like, keep the sound off, let it post. And I just don't even look at it again, because we are our own critics. Like, we're
Mhm.
so on ourselves. But then it's like, I get feedback and they're like, oh my God, I love your reels. Like, I learned so much. Like, I pass it on to my clients and even my friends who know nothing about the home inspection process. They're like, I love this. And they still follow me. And I'm like, okay, then I just need to keep doing what I'm doing.
Did you allow yourself to internalize that and listen? Because that's the hardest part. I think we all ignore that when it's
Yeah.
like real world feedback.
Yeah, no, I took that feedback, and it did help my confidence. And I'm like, okay, I know what I'm talking about. This is my profession. I'm licensed to say these things. Like,
Yeah.
put it out there. So, and it's gone a long way. I mean, I think I post once a day now. So,
Once a day. Is it a real story?
it's usually a reel, and I post it. I automate all of my posts, so I post at like 7:30 mostly every morning, and they're posts and they go out there, and like, I pull up my Instagram and I have, hundreds of likes, and I'm like, okay, it's working.
Yeah. So do you have a process for batch creating, and then would you use a tool to like schedule them out? Like, what's that process like?
I typically don't schedule. Well, I do schedule them out, and I try to make it as automated as possible. So usually when I'm on site and I see a defect that I want to share with others, or even just like a home maintenance tip, usually I pull up Instagram instantly and I go to the reels and I just start recording,
Mhm.
and then I save the draft, and then I'm done, because like, I can't take a lot of time while I'm on site to like produce a whole reel.
Sure. You got to capture the content while you're there. Yeah.
Yeah, so I capture just a small video, and then when I get home that night, I edit it. I do captions all on Instagram. It takes me a while, it's very time consuming, and I think that's where a lot of people get lost, is they don't want to take the time to edit it to make it look right, and especially with people who aren't very tech savvy, which I am not tech savvy. But you have to just keep it simple and clean and short, because usually the short reels do best anyways.
Yeah. So, and then do you schedule them out within Instagram? So you'll create one that night, and do you say like publish this in 3 days or like,
Yeah. So like right now I have about 15 drafts in my Instagram, and usually 5 of them are scheduled out to be at 7:30 the next morning.
that's great. What led you to creating a system for that? Because that you said it so naturally, like that's just like how you do it. Not everyone thinks that way. They wake up and think, "Oh, what am I going to do today?" And that's too much pressure.
Yeah,
Or
I think the biggest thing I have learned since starting my business is automation and consistency. And because we get so busy that we forget to send out emails, we forget to post, we forget to do this. And if you automate it, it's just already done. So I was really trying to find a way to save time as well as be like productive as possible. And I also found that posting consistently makes a huge difference as far as followers and engagement. So you just kind of have to eliminate the time it takes to do that and just set up a set schedule. That way you're doing it consistently and you know it's getting done.
the beauty too of us even talking about this is that there's a big portion of our industry that just will not do this. And the ones that are clearly winning and getting benefits from it. Did it exceed your expectations in terms of the actual business that came from it?
It definitely did because, as you know, with Spectora, whenever you schedule a home inspection online, there's a comment box that says referral source,
Mhm.
and almost like 80 to 90% of my referrals are Instagram, or like I've just followed you on Instagram, saw you on Instagram, or an agent on my team told me to follow you, and stuff like that. So, majority of my referrals are from Instagram.
That's insane. That's one of the highest I've heard. There's you and a couple others that are consistently creating. And that to me, that debunks the whole it can't be done just over social, but you're doing it well and it takes time. I think that's the takeaway here. This isn't
Mhm.
a PSA for everyone to run out and go do Instagram posts, right? Because that takes away time from you maybe visiting agent offices or doing more in-person stuff. Is that
Right.
fair to say?
Yeah, and I still do those things when I'm asked to do them. I still do presentations and stuff like that, and that goes a huge way. I did a presentation a year ago for a very prominent real estate team here in Charlotte, and they now use me exclusively. So that goes um, very long way also, and they all follow me on Instagram because every time I do a presentation, I have a QR code. People scan it. I tell them, I say, I post videos, I educate you, I try to give you as much information as possible on the home inspection process because a lot of people are buying their first homes. They don't know what to look for, they don't know home maintenance tips. So they always follow me on Instagram. And then it's always brought up during the summary too. They talk to their clients and they're like, you should follow her on Instagram. She posts all kinds of cool stuff. So
No way.
it's kind of crazy.
That's great. That's great. And did you find most of the agents take you up on that? Most of them are on Instagram, right? They have to be.
They are, yeah. And they even ask me sometimes, like, how do you do it? And because I've looked at other marketing options like billboards, store carts here, because I see
Mhm.
real estate agents all over the place. And I'm like, do I really need to spend that money? Like, I think I get so much exposure on Instagram that I don't know if it's like worth a billboard.
It's a digital billboard that reaches the whole city. That's the beauty of it. And that's it, like the fact that it's turned into real relationships, business, and even extending to the clients to me is probably one of the more powerful case studies I've seen and heard. And so I like discussing the details just to let people know because I think a lot of people think it's, oh, you flip your phone on and you're just kind of doing this for show or like to get your face out there. It's like, well, you said the key word of educating agents. I
Mhm.
think they clearly appreciate this content. I mean, some of these have like tens of thousands of views, and so like it's getting seen and shared. So kudos to you on that. We could probably do a whole follow-up episode of like how to like execute this. But I'm curious how you got into this business. What got you into inspecting?
So I am asked that all the time, and I think people are expecting the answer to be, my dad was a home inspector, a builder, or my mom was in real estate, and this is like kind of the most unexpected path I could ever take because I was previously a flight attendant before I started my home inspection business, and of course, during COVID, I got furloughed and I was let go for like months on end. I was probably out for 9 months. I was on unemployment. I kept taking, voluntary leaves because I was so miserable in what I was doing. And it used to not be like that. When I first started flying, I had a blast. It was so much fun. But of course, the longer I did it, the older I got, I was like, I have no purpose. I'm not happy doing this. I make no money. It was just like,
Right.
there was nowhere else to go. And as easy and as fun as the job was, I felt like I wasn't living up to my full potential and I needed to change that. So during my furlough, I do have a lot of friends who are in Charlotte real estate, and they were telling me, you should get your real estate license. I was like, no, I don't want to do that. Like, I am such an introvert. I can't sell this shirt off my back. Like, it is just terrible. So I looked into the home inspection industry and I found out that it's just, self-paced online for North Carolina. And then you do the 8 hours field training and then it's state exam. I was like, I can do this. So I kind of just messed around with it. I went through the training and I liked that it was self-paced because I was like, I can quit this at any time. Like, I wasn't tying myself to anything. And I just went through and I was like, I am learning so much. Like, this is a whole world that I'm tapping into that I didn't even really know existed. And so as soon as I went through the training and all of that, I really enjoyed it. I loved what I was, learning, and it was like a whole new life for me. So upon getting licensed, I started to shadow somebody, and I wasn't quite sure if I wanted to go to a firm or start out on myself. But the reason I got into starting my own business was the flexibility and being an entrepreneur. Like, that's something I've always been drawn to. So I went out on my own after shadowing a few inspectors, and it kind of just started to roll as soon as it took me probably about 4 months to really get consistent. And then, of course, now it's just kind of exploded.
That's so cool to hear. So was there an interest even growing up in like construction, building homes, or like what led you to even look into home inspecting? Because not everyone makes that jump from realtor to the home inspector.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think it was just a suggestion from my friend
Uh,
because I was trying to, because I was looking at appraisals also.
mhm.
I just wanted something with flexibility and that I could do on my own. And of course, as I was getting into it, I was like, oh, I got to get on roofs. I got to get a ladder. Like, I got to go under houses. And it's just kind of like, it was definitely daunting. And of course, being a minority in the field, I was like, I don't know how well I'm going to do. Like, I'm going to have
Sure.
to earn so much trust and like get so much experience before these people are even going to think about referring me. But I think, at least in Charlotte, people were so, surprised that I was out there doing it. And I got so much support from people and they just like took a chance on me. But to answer your question, no, I had not even didn't even cross my mind until a friend suggested it.
That's amazing. And the training can be amazing to ramp people up who, it's not brain surgery. I always tell people like, we can say that it's like a tough job, but someone can get into it and learn what they need to learn.
Yeah.
Talk a little more if you could, because I've only interviewed maybe 4 or 5 women, and there's maybe there's only 10 in the industry. I don't know. It's not a huge number, but like what were some of those challenges, and what was that like? For any female home inspectors that are watching.
Yeah. So I think it's a challenge if you make it a challenge. It's
Mhm.
kind of like a mindset thing. You can't really go into something like this with any doubt. So I did have slight doubt, of course, when I first started, but I was like, get over it. Like, I'm getting the same education and knowledge and experience as the dude sitting next to me in this training class. And I went and passed the exam. Like, I'm qualified to do this. So, and I was also a lot younger than people in my training class. So I thought that that was also an advantage, of course, with my, experience to like grow my business on Instagram. A lot of older inspectors are in that. So I just kind of like took the advantages and kind of ran with it. I was like, I am a woman-owned business. Like that's a lot of people want to support that. I am young, I'm quick, I'm efficient. Like I do everything fast. So I just kind of took what I knew I was good at and marketed that to get real estate agents other than just saying like, oh, I'm a female, hire me. So it was just kind of, there are some disadvantages to it. I think some people are like really surprised when I show up to inspect their homes, especially sellers. They're like, "Oh, are you doing the inspection?" I'm like, "Yeah, that's why I'm here." She's like, "Oh, it's just you? I've never seen a female in this industry." And I was like, "Well, it's starting." So, um, yeah, it's been. I just kind of ignore all the doubt and and then just do what I know I'm capable of doing.
That's the best way to attack it head on. Because yeah, when they make the comment on site, I almost see that as a good thing. They're almost welcoming the conversation and giving you an opportunity to say either, yeah, not a big deal, let's jump in, or yeah, this is the challenges, this is what I faced, but like it doesn't. I've been in the same classes, got the same training, and so it gives you the option, I think, to take that bait or not, right? When
Right.
they open the door.
Yeah, it's
So
also fun when I go to like pre-drywall inspections and the builder's there, the trades are there, and they're wondering if I'm lost. And I'm just like, well, I'll just say hello, good morning, smile and wave, and do my job.
And have you found that balance also of being able to be just as vulnerable as a male that doesn't know something or that says, you know what, I'll research that. Let me get back to you, because there's
Yeah,
also the pressure the other way, right? Of like of the unfair, I think, double standard of like women maybe have to know everything or the expectation of that versus saying like, oh, I don't know. And that's okay because I'm just a home
yeah,
inspector that doesn't know that answer.
yeah. And I always say I never know anything, and I never pretend to know anything, but I will find the answer. So none of us know anything, and if you think you do, then might have to reevaluate.
Yeah, absolutely. I've come across those home inspectors and they are not delightful to work with. Like
Yeah.
I couldn't wait to not work with them when the
Mhm.
facade, I called it peacocking in like 50 episodes ago. They talked about the typical peacocking that home inspectors do when it's like it's an insecurity coming out, and sometimes the ones you think are the best home inspectors still have that.
Yeah.
So for everyone out there listening, don't be that home
Yeah.
inspector. So you talked about some of the strengths. Client communication seems big on your radar in terms of you do the educating through Instagram, through a video. And to me, if you can do that well to a camera, you're probably going to be good at it in person for the clients and agents. So can you just talk a little bit about your views on just communication in general, because our industry, maybe not the best at it as a whole.
Right. Yeah. And I think, some of that may have gotten forgotten during COVID because people weren't meeting us towards the end of the inspection. We didn't have summaries and people just kind of lost their communication skills during all of that. So um, I do take pride in the way I communicate defects. I don't, it was kind of like jammed into my brain during my training process that home inspectors aren't code inspectors. So I am not, copy and pasting my comments from the IRC or like code enforcement books because that's not what we do. We're safety and functionality, not code. So I think that's important to remember. And as far as communicating with clients, I get a lot of first time home buyers. I get a lot of, young people who don't really know what's happening. And we also, in Charlotte, there's this huge renovation and flip industry where they're taking these 1960s, 1970s homes and just sometimes they're completely renovating them. And then sometimes you get the guy who's just,
Cheap as
flipping.
possible. Yeah.
So it's, and of course, as a home buyer who doesn't really know a lot, they're walking into this beautiful home with all these nice finishes, and they haven't even looked in the crawl space. So, of course, they get there, they're all excited, and it looks great. But you go into the crawl space, and these piers are crumbling. There's moisture everywhere. The subfloor is, discolored. So those are things that we have to communicate to this buyer who thinks that they're buying this beautifully renovated home and the crawl space has been neglected. So I always kind of start off with, I kind of have a script because it's best to stick to a script, but I always say, it's not falling down. This is a beautiful home. Congratulations. That's how I start every conversation with my clients. And I just go into, we need to focus on the crawl space before you make other decisions. And I say things like, this pier is crumbling. It needs repaired, and it needs repaired probably by an engineer. And then I explain, what an engineer does versus what a foundation contractor is going to do, because a lot of people don't know that difference either. They just get scared with the word engineer. So it's so important to give as much information in a calm manner than to just say, your crawl space is shot, it needs so much work, and just scaring them, because I don't know what funds they have to make repairs, and that's not really my concern. So I just have to give them the information on what they need to do to make the best decision. So I think that's kind of what I focus on, but communicating that in a calm manner is huge.
That's so refreshing, because as a former agent, and also after talking to, hundreds of inspectors and agents over the years, probably thousands at this point, that's all the agent wants is calm, collected honesty without personal bias or opinions overlaid. And a lot of inspectors do that, unfortunately. And I think like the whole deal killer kind of mentality and perception, this helps get rid of that by saying like, it's irrelevant if the deal goes through or not. You're calmly putting things into context.
Yeah.
And I think people appreciate that.
Yeah. And if you're doing your job correctly and you're finding these defects and giving them the information they need, then you shouldn't worry about if the deal is going to go through or not, because you did your job and you did it confidently and you gave them everything they need to move forward. So it's up to us if it goes through or not.
One thing I want to just even highlight, it's a simple phrase, but when you said, hey, it's a beautiful home, it's not falling over, like that to me means a lot, because to a first time, a bright-eyed, first time homebuyer couple, they may not know the difference. Honestly, they may be looking for your validation. And so I think like those rehearsed or canned statements can mean a lot, even though they sound generic to us because we know the industry and we know homes. I think home buyers need to hear those things. So I think that's like a powerful but simple kind of tweak there. Mm-hmm. So I want to go back to just like the new home inspector. If you were talking to new home inspectors, like what was interesting or jumped out or not as you expected becoming a new home inspector?
I think becoming a new home inspector is, as far as the support I've received, that was so surprising to me. I think it's my local community and where I do my business. Charlotte is just such a great city for that. But I have received so much support. And when I first started this, I was like, these people have absolutely no reason to hire me, because I have no experience. I have no background. I'm, 29 years old, and they probably think I have no clue what I'm doing. So you just kind of have to hold on and prove yourself and keep educating yourself and take on as much information as possible so that people see that. And you have to portray that, and you have to show that you are passionate, because passion goes away. To me, passion can go further than experience, because there are guys out there who have been doing this for 20, 25 years, and they're just not passionate about it anymore, and they don't care, and they're not trying to do better. So I really think people see how passionate and determined I am, and that goes a long way.
I really appreciate that. And this isn't in any way to bash those in the industry that have been around. To me, it's highlighting the complacency that has happened in our business. And I've seen it over and over where some inspectors, they have their agents and they think they have them forever. Mm-hmm. But when you're no longer willing to learn and adapt and research new trends, things going on, to me, it's a losing bet. You're losing already. And they're going to lose out to people like yourself that are humble and hardworking, because I will work with that kind of person any day of the week over the know-it-all kind of like high horse inspector, the condescending ones. We all know those ones where it's like,
unfortunately they do exist.
Yeah. Like, let me show you what I know. No one wants to be around that. That's a PSA for anyone listening. But no, that's super helpful for new inspectors, because I think it can be a lonely industry, and it can feel like there's no playbook where
Mhm.
you are kind of making it up. And like, trust me, as an entrepreneur, I get it. It's like you just kind of keep going every day and saying like, I hope I'm doing the right things, and look for signals out there in the universe.
Yeah, and that's a lot of what it is. It's just like trial and error and trying to figure out what works.
So did you start off with any kind of aspirations of how big, how busy you wanted to be, like where you want the company to go? Like what do you look for in terms of this year? Like what are you aiming to do?
Yeah, so I think this past year has been really monumental for Swell Home Inspections. It has been extremely overwhelming and busy, and I have been trying to juggle all of it myself, which I do. I drive myself crazy, but I do it. But I have talked to a lot of entrepreneurs and real estate agents, and there comes to a point when you're running a business where you can no longer do everything yourself because it's going to get messy. You're going to get burnt out. You're going to get frustrated. And I try really hard not to do that. But um, I also know at some point I'm going to have to hire another inspector. I'm trying to wait as long as possible to do that because, this is my reputation. This is my brand. This is my company. This is my entire life. So putting somebody else on that name is extremely daunting to me. Um, but as far as Swell, I think in the next, 2 to 5 years, I would love to have another home inspector. I do want to train a female. I want to recruit and train a female home inspector as well because I am 100% woman owned and I want to have a 100% woman, employee base as well. Because I think that would be huge moving forward, not only for Swell, but for other females who want to get into this industry and don't think that they can. So I kind of want to inspire that.
We talked a little bit about the female owned and hiring female employees, obviously an important, cause for the industry that we need to ramp up. So I will be connecting you with some of the others that have been on the pod, like Jennifer Riley out of Austin, great business,
Mhm.
has kind of ramped up and hired a lot of female inspectors. So anything we can do to help on that front in terms of getting content out there. But I think your Instagram content alone might be the biggest factor. So kudos on that.
Yeah, thank you.
So getting into the industry, coming from the outside, I'm always curious where else you see that the industry maybe is lacking or not innovating, or kind of like if we look ahead into the future, because so many of us have been in it for 5, 10, 20, 30 years and can get stagnant. So like where do you see gaps, or where do you see kind of innovations coming in the future?
So I think as far as at least what I hear from fellow inspectors and real estate agents is people publishing these 200-page reports and like 100-page reports and just putting in these terrifying comments under all of these photos. So I think when I see the home inspection industry, I kind of want it to be as efficient and fast and easy as possible. Like we have, I think we have to eliminate the stressfulness. I think we have to eliminate the time and process because when I go to a home inspection, it can take me anywhere between 2 to 4 hours because sometimes I'll be on site for 4 hours at a 1960 ranch that has been terribly flipped. And but no matter the home inspection, no matter the home, the condition, whatever, as soon as I leave the home, my report is published. So it is, and then I go to my next home inspection and I'm starting a fresh slate. So I think a lot of times when I hear that inspectors are doing 2 to 3 home inspections a day and then they go home, they write these reports, it's 9 p.m. and they have not published their report yet, that's just insane to me. um, I because we are in such a crazy real estate market right now that people have 2 week due diligence, they need to close, they need to schedule, and sometimes I'm already booked out 2 weeks. So when I schedule my home inspection, I assure them, I almost guarantee, I said, you will have the report by time I leave the property. And I think that is huge. And that's something a lot of people in my area aren't doing. And also, this is partly to Spectora, but people love the software and the technology that Spectora provides as far as like client-based home inspection reports. I get so much feedback on how clean and easy to read my reports are. And I think home inspectors get lost in having these extravagant long comments that I'm like, nobody's really reading that, you know? And if they are, they're terrified and they're back. Like, so I think just keeping the home inspection as like clean and easy and as less stressful as possible is key in the industry.
It's huge. There's so much to hit on here. So like the client experience, I think, you and I, whether you're a millennial or Gen X, whatever, if you're under 50, there's a chance you want things to be more concise, efficient, readable.
Mm-hmm.
And user experience is something, I think that's why we succeeded in the industry, was we were some of the first ones to think about who's actually digesting the report, not just who's writing it.
Yeah.
Because inspectors will write novels.
Mm-hmm.
And the funny misconception there, misperception, is that limits liability. And I've actually worked with a few home inspectors. Melissa Kuhn actually was on the podcast. She's actually sits on a board that judges cases that go to the state for home inspections. And she said the ones that had a lot more text, there was more to pick apart. And those were the harder ones to judge versus the ones with just clear images and arrows and circles where that's indisputable. So for whatever that's worth, it's probably time to refresh that PSA anyway, of like, more text does not always equal.
Yeah, I think I have learned in like the past year, just based on client feedback, is the less I say, the better. And if you're doing your job correctly, you shouldn't really be worried about liability. And we all have the pre-inspection agreement. Like, that's why we have the pre-inspection agreement, because people will come after you regardless. But you have to be confident in your findings to not put an entire textbook underneath your comments, and just give the information that they need. As far as like getting so technical with like code, that's not in my report unless it's an extreme safety hazard or a pre-drywall, obviously.
So on the vein of communication and connection, 'cause it sounds like you're great at that, have you found clients get more at ease the more you kind of communicate on site, so then there's not as much pressure on the report? Like, I've always thought that, but like, is that true in your experience?
Yeah, so my report is still 40 pages long. I do put photos in there so that people know what I inspected. But that's something I always say during my summary as well. I was like, you're going to get this report, and I show them the summary and I say, this is just the summary. You're going to get exactly what you're looking at right now. You have photos, recommendations, and comments as to why this needs to be repaired. So I always tell them that. I said, you have way more information on this report than you actually need. So please don't get overwhelmed when you are reading it. And I always say, everything on this report is what we discussed right now. And I said, if you go back and you read the report, questions, just call me, because you're going to read and you're going to get freaked out. So I think you kind of just have to have transparency there.
Love that. So with efficiency, so I think there's gains to be had in the future in terms of, like you said, the amount of time on site, whether it's multiple inspectors on a home or part of the inspection even being pre-populated for the stuff that's not unique. Do you foresee any other areas? I don't know if you pay attention much to AI or anything like that, but like, are there areas that jump out where you're like, there could be something there in terms of my workflow or how Spectora even does things?
I think it is definitely as efficient as it can be. I'm always, of course, looking to make things more efficient and time saving on my end. I do think, as far as like automation that Spectora provides, that's huge as far as efficiency. And when I first started, I was having trouble with the clients signing the agreement and making payment. Mm-hmm. And there were maybe 2 times where I went out to a property before I had payment, and I will never do that again. So with Spectora, you're able to send all of these reminders prior to the inspection. And I kind of changed my language on that confirmation email, the first email that you get. So I changed the title of it and I said home inspection confirmation, and then there's a hyphen that says next steps, because I want them to know that they're not done,
Right.
because it makes it easy for me and it makes it easy for them. So I require it 24 hours prior to the inspection, because now that I'm getting more busy, I have people who are inquiring about these dates. And if you don't have the payment or the pre-inspection, then I lose out on technically 2 home inspections because I could have filled that spot. So I do think efficiency in the way that you can also build your report on site with Spectora. I use my phone and nothing else. And that's why most of the time my inspection is complete when I leave the property. So I do think Spectora is doing a great job as far as efficiency. AI is a little tricky. I haven't really tapped into that much, to be honest. I think it can get like a little, I don't know if I trust it yet as far as writing my comments and stuff like that in my emails. I would have to look into it.
It might be years in the future. Yeah, it's like we're not even super bullish on it like as of today. I think we're kind of in a wait and see mode, and then implement it quickly when we do see there's a very, I guess, safe, legal, efficient way that inspectors trust at the end of the day. Because you guys have to be able to trust what's happening.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, I mean, as far as clear communication, being fast and efficient, I think that's huge.
Yeah. With the market outlook this year, are you feeling any of that, or is Charlotte booming to the point where you're like, we're still busy here, things are good? Because everyone's got different opinions based on where they are, based on where the market's going to go. Like, how much do you pay attention to that stuff, and kind of what's your outlook?
I do pay a great amount of attention to it. I think Charlotte is a huge growth industry. I mean, they are building them everywhere and as quickly as possible. One day, there's ground, and then the next day you've got 10 townhomes with house wrap on them already. So it's kind of crazy how quickly. At the same time, that's a bad thing because they put them up so quickly. They put them up anywhere, and it's these new construction inspections. You just never know what you're going to get. But I do think the market here, with rates dropping, it is going to pick up. January for me this year has been my most busiest January to date since I started. Because I was kind of like, I'm going to go on vacation in January, because I was looking back at my matrix from 3 Januaries ago. I was like, oh, I wasn't busy at all. And I go on vacation the beginning of the month, and now I'm backed up, 2.5 weeks. And I was like, that's what I get. So I do think we're going to start seeing, this market come in waves with the spring market. Like, I do think I think people are jumping on it right now because rates are going up or down, and I think it's going to stop and then pick back up. You just kind of never know. And you can read and listen up on it, but I do think Charlotte is pretty steady regardless of the rates.
Yeah, I see it listed as always one of those cities and even states that is getting inflow and continuing to grow. And so, for what it's worth, sometimes I can even get, down on the market if I read national headlines, but certain pockets are still booming apparently.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because homes are still getting sold. I mean, 3.78 million in the next 12 months is the NAR forecast, and that's a lot of jobs. That's a lot of home inspections.
Yeah, and I do believe Charlotte is so much more affordable compared to New York, California, and a lot of people that we get from out of state are from New York and California, and they sold their homes and they can buy these mansions here in Charlotte. So they're kind of like, it's bang for your buck in Charlotte right now too.
Which you're more than happy to inspect, right? These 5,000, 7,000 square foot homes.
Yeah, those are always fun. They, I have actually tapped into the luxury market recently where I'm doing these beautiful homes, and it's a lot of pressure because of the client that you're working with. They're buying this $4 million home, and I have to uncover every single stone because that's what I would want if I were buying that home. So it's a lot of pressure, but it's fun because these are custom built homes. You don't always see huge defects, but they take a while because there's, poor HVAC systems.
Right, right. But they are higher, yeah, they are higher quality materials typically. What did it take to kind of break into the luxury space? What do you think? Like, what do you think is key?
I think my networking really kind of got me there. I did mention earlier, about a year ago, I did a lunch and learn for a partner of mine, Jessica Babinski. She works in mortgage in Charlotte now. She's actually in the Compass office now. And so she asked me to do this lunch and learn with all of these real estate agents that she works with. And there was probably people in the room and of people that I have never met. I did have a lot of my agents my regulars show up because I invited them. But I did a presentation on thermal imaging. And to my surprise, a lot of inspectors don't market that or they don't use it in Charlotte. So I think as far as like the luxury real estate, people appreciate that extra mile, because I always say this comes standard in every inspection. I don't charge extra for it. I scan every room. I check every wall for leaks. That's just something I do. It's not always portrayed in my report unless there's a defect. But
Okay.
as far as my inspection process, I do scan every room, whether I see a stain or not, especially on new construction, because it has happened numerous times where they drill holes in the main drain line when they're hanging a shelf and there's water everywhere. So I think that presentation got a lot of people in that room to move forward with me.
That's great.
Luxury,
Because
yeah.
everyone wants to move up market. I think but a lot of people don't know how, or maybe don't have everything put together to be like a luxury home inspector. And I think, like, I can tell you, even from like the nice polo zip up that you have on, like all the little details, I believe add up to an agent saying you match my energy in terms of like, I'm a luxury real estate agent. And so I don't know if you've seen any of that, or if there's any major differences, or if it's more of a kind of luck of the draw in terms of who you run into.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is luck, but I also think it's the way you present yourself. And I think in any industry, no matter what, you should always present yourself in a high-end fashion, because that's just something I've always owned up to. But I do think, because when I first got a huge, 8,000 square foot home, I was like, oh God, can I do this? Because I did. I was like, because we show up with thousands of dollars of tools, and sometimes we only use, the camera, the flashlight, and the screwdriver. And I was like, I don't have a massive ladder. I have a ladder that fits in the back of my truck. But I was like, yeah, I can do this. If I can't get to something, I'm climbing out a window or I'm on a lower level roof. Like, I get to everything no matter what. And if I can't, or if it's not safe, then I put that in my report. But most agents know you're not getting on a 8,000 square foot roof, So, but yeah, I don't think anybody should ever say, oh, that's too big, I can't do that home, because you are licensed and qualified to do any type of home inspection. It just will take longer, and you have to plan for that.
Yeah, it could be a whole day, but it's worth it, because I feel like those ones also get a lot of mileage on social media. They play well, they film well. So I think the marketing side of it is where a lot of inspectors maybe don't have the know-how or chops to like market to that end.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and of course, once I always post that too. I'm like, I have a wide variety of experience, because I will do a 700 square foot home in the boondocks, and I'll also do an 8,000 square foot home in South Charlotte. So you can't limit yourself.
Are you doing a lot of new builds? Like, what % would you say are new builds?
Yeah, so this week I had about 3 new builds. So I usually have one once a week.
Wow.
Yeah, they put them up like crazy here in Charlotte, and those are always fun. You never know what you're gonna get, and half the time they're not completed when you're there, so it takes longer. But yeah, new builds are fun. They're easy and they're fun, and there's a lot of them in Charlotte for sure.
It's a good diversifier too, because if the residential resale market stalls or slows even a little, usually it's a seesaw effect where it's like, okay, new builds go up a little quicker, but you got to be ready and got to market to the agents that you do them to, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Last question for you. As a digital native, do a lot of your agents book online with you, or are you answering phones? Because it sounds like you're busy and it's just you. So like, how do you?
Yeah. So I always encourage my agents to schedule online.
Mm,
I will say, there are some agents who have used me forever and they'll just text me, you
oh,
know. But I try to eliminate the chain as much as possible because they'll be like, when's your next availability? And it's just back and forth, back and forth. I was like, this is my next ability. Please give me the name, the address, the phone number, and the email, and I'll confirm you, because it's kind of like, and I also have people who are like, they want to know my availability before they put the offer in because they want to know what their due diligence can be. And sometimes they'll say, can you hold that spot for me? And I have been doing that recently. I will hold it for 12 hours. If I don't hear from you by the end of the day or the next morning, you're off the schedule. So, um,
okay.
and that's why I do encourage online scheduling because it's confirmed instantly. I get an email, all I have to do is click and we're done, and everything gets sent out. So I do prefer people to schedule online, but sometimes it's an email or a text, but I'm not one to push back on that because everybody's different and I'm not going to be the one who's like schedule online, send my link. Like I can work with you.
Okay. So it sounds like you get the majority of them doing it a scalable way that works for you, but then there's the exceptions where it's like, okay, he or she's never gonna like schedule
They're
online.
just not going to get it. So yeah, some
Right
people
on.
don't want to adapt. And
Yeah.
so I'm flexible.
Right on. Well, Bailey, this has been awesome. We got a minute left. I want to be respectful of your time. Is there anything we didn't discuss that you wanted to jump into, or anything you want to put out there to whether it's the industry, other female home inspectors, anything?
Um, Not really. I just kind of always say not to, limit yourself or have any doubt if you are starting in this industry as a new young female home inspector. Even if you're not a female, even if you're young, just allow yourself some patience and get on Instagram. It's the first thing.
Get on Instagram and follow you.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. There's the answer.
Yeah.
Well, this has been awesome, Bailey. Appreciate the time. And I'll post links to kind of all your stuff in the description so people can kind of follow along and see what kind of content you're putting out there because I think it's awesome. And you're changing part of an industry. So kudos to you.
Thank you so much. It was great to be here.
Right on.
All right. Take care.